Hi, I'm Rebecca Evans-Merritt. I am a self-taught home sewist. I've been sewing for 20 years this year, and I really like to work in a way that I would call slow and conscious. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So what do I mean when I'm talking about slow and conscious? So slow making or slow fashion, when we're talking about making garments, is kind of the opposite of fast fashion. So here, especially where I live in the UK, we have kind of a system where fashion trends kind of go straight from the catwalk, and within a very short period of time you can buy them on the high street. The turnaround is like so quick that it's really detrimental to the environment and to the people that make the garments. It's just something that I really felt that I needed to take a step back from. I kind of did this slowly over maybe about like 10 years, and then I got kind of a real push towards wanting to quit fast fashion completely about 5 years ago. I am not an expert on this subject at all. I am just quite interested in it. If you did want to learn more about it, I would suggest watching a film called The True Cost. You could also read a book called To Die For by Lucy Siegel. That's the first book that I read on the subject, which really helped me to kind of get my head around it. You can follow Aja Barber on Instagram. She's always got lots of truth to talk about on fast fashion. And you could look at the Fashion Revolution website that has loads of facts and figures about fast fashion and how it is damaging to the world and to people. So I personally stopped supporting fast fashion businesses about 2 or 3 years ago. So I choose to make my clothes, I choose to buy second hand where I can, and I also choose to support independent businesses that are working in a more sustainable way. I know this isn't something that is feasible for everyone, but I think we can all take steps towards thinking a bit more about where our clothes are coming from. And also, being home sewists, we're already doing a lot in taking a step back from that anyway. So when I talk about slow sewing and slow making, I am talking about working in a way that is not rushed and is more considerate for people and the planet. And this also brings us on to working in a more conscious way. So, conscious making. I see this as being a bit more aware of what my intentions are around my making, and also it's just like thinking before doing. So I might think about why I might want to be making something. Is it something that I like because I just seen it a lot around and I want it now? Or is it something that I still think I will probably like in like years time, or maybe even 5 years time, maybe even 10 years time? And it's also thinking about the longevity of fabrics. So am I buying a good quality fabric? Am I buying maybe an organic fabric or something that is a bit kinder to the environment as well? So all of this is kind of just taking a step back before you go for making a project, and just being a bit more mindful so that you can keep in mind what is the impact on people and on the planet of my making. So thinking about the questions that you might ask yourself before you start a project, you can kind of start with like simple questions and then work up to deeper questions as you get more involved in making in a more conscious way. But let's look at an example of some of the questions that you might ask yourself. Taking fabric sourcing as an example, so the first question you might ask is, where will I get my fabric from? So this can be broken down into, do I have anything in my stash already? Am I supporting an independent business? What's the fibre content of the fabric? Who grew the fibres? Where and how has this fabric been made? How far has the fabric travelled from where it was manufactured? What will happen to my fabric after I finish with my garment? So as you can see, it is quite a big topic really once you start to get into it. But I think if you just start by asking yourself like even like one simple question before you purchase your fabric, say, then it all is helping towards working in a more conscious way. Also, just a note on the word sustainable, because it's a very popular word nowadays, and there can be a lot of like greenwashing, so companies trying to look like they care about sustainability but they don't really. So I would say just do your research, really look at what the company stands for, try and find out where your fabric has come from, try and be mindful of where your fabric is going to end up. Is it biodegradable? All things like this are things that you can consider if you want to work in a more conscious way. Thinking about ways to source your fabrics or your haberdashery notions in a more conscious way could be first looking at if you can find things secondhand. That could be a nice vintage fabric, or it could just be like old curtains from your local charity shop or thrift store. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can use fabric that you already own, like you might have an old sheet that might be nice enough to make into a garment. So you can think about all things like that. Also, don't forget, when you finish with old clothes, try and harvest any zips or buttons or even elastic that's still got some life left in it. All of these things can really help to make sure that you're not consuming too much. You can look out for fabric swaps, or you could even start your own if there aren't any in the area that you live in. This top was actually made from fabric from a fabric swap, so I always like to think one person's trash is another person's treasure, and you never know what you might find. If you are going to buy fabric new, then it's a good idea to just look at the retailers that you're buying from, and if you are able to support a local fabric retailer, then do that as well. I like to save all my fabric scraps as I go, so I have some little jars, so as I'm sewing I can just put any fabrics in there. I separate mine with synthetics and naturals, and I use the natural scraps. I like to cut them into stuffing, and I use them to make little sponge scrubbies for my dishes. But you can also look and search for like scrap busting projects, like there's so many out there now. It's always good to have a look and see what you can do to save your fabric from going to waste. Ways to work in a slow and conscious way can be, you can start planning your makes. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to have like a scrapbook with all your swatches stuck in it or anything. Like, I literally just write down what's in my brain into the notes on my phone, and that's how I plan all my makes. And then I always have a list that is easily updated, so I can just keep in mind what things I might like, because one week I might like something and then the next week actually I don't like it so much. So it's always good to kind of give yourself time to think about something before you make it, just so you're not making anything in a rushed way. Don't try to achieve everything in one go. Just do it like step by step. Take your time, do it to the best of your ability. The main thing is that you're making a garment that's really going to last, so you want to make it well, so just chill out and take your time. If you're finding something confusing, or you're unsure about what you're doing, or unsure about design choices that you've made, I really like to sleep on it. Sometimes it's just good to take that step back and just have a little bit of space, and then when you come back to it, you might find that you've got fresh eyes and you can see what the solution is going to be. Try to make in an atmosphere that is relaxed. You might be lucky enough to have a dedicated sewing space. I definitely don't. But you can still put on whatever music you like, or podcasts. Make sure that you stay hydrated and have whatever snacks you like, so that you're just making a nice calm environment to create in. So the main points for working in a slow and conscious way, I would say, are to take your time, enjoy the process, and make things that will last. I hope this has been helpful in encouraging you to think a bit more about your making practice, and perhaps moving towards working in a more slow and conscious way. Thanks for listening.